just wrap up of the story. So what we'll look at in the 1743. So what we saw in the first chapter of Ruth is this. This is what we focused on. Mostly on first the two verbs of to come and to return. There's throughout the chapter the author plays with this to come and return. So where do you go from and where do you go to? They go from Bethlehem, the basket of bread, abundance, blessing, to the field of Moab, to an open space with no safety, no security, and they settle there, and then they get up to return to Bethlehem Yehuda. But the return is questionable because Naomi says, I am returning to my homeland, but where are you returning to? So she tells the daughters-in-law, go, return to your mother. And then she says, return to your father. Then she says, return to your husband. She keeps pushing her back away from her, saying your return really is towards a different goal, not towards Bethlehem and not with me because you don't belong there. And then when Orpah makes this final act and kisses her, what we say farewell, Naomi tells Ruth, you see, your sister-in-law returned to her gods. So it's a gradual process where she keeps alienating more and more to the father, the mother, the husband, and eventually the other gods, the false gods that she belongs to. Ruth clings to Naomi, and she clings to Naomi because she sees two things. So we could, in the beginning of the story, we don't know what are the motives of Ruth. Does she have an ulterior motive? Does she want something else? And Naomi doesn't trust her. She says, what are you looking for? To get married? I have no more children for you. In other words, she says, I cannot give you financial stability or any stability at all. And we think, okay, maybe she wants just the last remnant of something that she knows, that she's familiar with, which is, she knows Naomi. She can't go back to her parents or to her homeland. But she speaks with such passion about Naomi's nation and religion that we assume that she's learned something from Naomi. So does she see the greatness of Judaism? Is this the only thing? But also, I think later we'll see that she saw greatness in Naomi herself. And that is why she clings to her. And my argument, what I want to show through the next chapter, is that Ruth saw this greatness in Naomi, and she saw in her height and in her decline. She saw this great woman, Naomi, so probably really projected this name, pleasantness. She was a pleasant and a woman full of faith. Naomi, pleasantness. Naim is pleasant. So Naomi is pleasant. And she lost all of that. She became bitter. She became...
talking about the mother-in-law.
Right. And she's the mother-in-law, right. So Naomi is disenchanted with God, with the world. She basically goes back to Bethlehem to die there. She doesn't go back to live there. And when people come and say, oh, Hazot Naomi, is this Naomi? We can't believe it. She sees that as pity on one hand and sort of like this morbid interest, like celebrities who are in jail or, got rehab or anything like that. Oh, wow, look what happened to her. This is the great woman Naomi. So she says, I'm not Naomi anymore. I'm bitter. God made my life bitter. And she says, me'od, meaning I don't think it's just. So she has a bitter argument with God. Now, so this is chapter 1. Chapter 2 opens with this statement. Now Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a man of substance, of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, I would like to go to the fields and glean among the ears of grain behind someone who may show me kindness. Yes, daughter, go, she replied. So in 2 words in Hebrew, Lechi biti, go. And she came, and off she went. She came and gleaned in the field behind the reapers, and as luck would have it, it was the piece of land belonging to Boaz, who was of Elimelech's family. So this, we touched upon last week also, that here we see, this is what Ruth is going to do. Her plan is to pull Naomi out of this swamp, out of this quagmire. But she's not going to show that. She's not going to Naomi to let her feel that Ruth is doing it. She wants Naomi to feel that it's all on her own, because someone who was once powerful and proud, it's very difficult for them to let go of their pride and say, I need you, I need to rely on you. So the smart way is to give them the support without them feeling it. So what does she do? She says, I want to go and glean wheat in the fields with whomever. So she doesn't say, I want to go to one of your relatives who will help you, because this is shameful, right? And now the author says, as luck would have it, Vayikra Mikra, it was accidental that she got to the field of Boaz, right? So we were taught, and that's how I was taught, that of course it's not luck, it's the hand of God. Then I read this story again and again, and I read it with the same verbs of to come and to go. They say, why is she coming and going into the field? She only has to come once. And then I realized what she was doing was, she knew there's a field in town that belongs to Boaz, but as there were no signs at the time, private property of Boaz, right? What she does, and if she goes and asks, who's the owner of the field? That's conspicuous. That she doesn't want to arouse any doubts. So she goes in and she starts picking a couple of stalks, and she says, by the way, who's the owner here? They tell her, Avimelech. Oh, okay, thank you. And she goes to another field. Vatelech vatavo. She repeats the process until, as luck would have it, she, it's like telemarketers. They call you and says, can I talk to Mr. Cohen? Oh, there's no Cohen. My name is Levi. Oh, actually I meant Levi, so can I even talk to him? Right? So she does that. Now, this is part one. Part two. Yeah, but she's smart the way she conducts herself. והנה בועז בא מבית-לחם, ויאמר לקוצרים אדוני עמכם, ואמרו לו יברכך אדוני. Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and he greeted the reapers. The Lord be with you. And they responded, the Lord bless you. So here we have this very important man. It's a man of status. He blesses with Hashem's name, so you have to be dignified to do that. And what is the first thing he does? ויאמר בועז לנערו הניצב על הקוצרים, למי הנערה הזאת? Boaz said to the servant who was in charge of the reapers, whose girl is that? Really? This is the first thing you do? You walk into the field, this important man Boaz, and you ask about the girls? So it's strange, right? ויען הנער הניצב על הקוצרים ויאמר, and the servant in charge replied, she is a Moabite girl who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the reapers. She has been on her feet ever since she came this morning. She has rested but little in the hut. That's a very long-winded answer for such a... Say, it's Ruth the Moabite, or it's the Moabite girl. It's the Moabite girl who came back with Naomi, and she came in the morning and she said this, and then she didn't rest. So, what it means is she stands out.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So is it normal to reap on other people's
Yeah.
land?
Yeah. Not only normal, it's a mitzvah.
Oh, so someone needs to...
Yeah.
So it's not even just in the 7th year, anytime?
Anytime, it's called leket. Leket is that when the reapers, the way the reapers work is they sort of like hug, they embrace a bunch of stalks, the sheaf, and then they cut it. And they carry it, and they put it in whatever heap they have. But some stalks fall, and those stalks belong to the poor.
But aren't they also instructed not to cut the corners of the field?
Right, and the corner is also... So
the
right.
corners are always left.
There are three concepts called leket, shikha, pe'ah. Leket is the individual stalks that fall. Shikha is a whole sheaf that was left behind, a whole bundle. And pe'ah, you have to leave the corner of the field. And that is all part of the Torah system of social justice. Right. But not right, supporting the poor, but in a way that they can sort of like take care of themselves, like a dignified way, right? Because they work with the reapers, so you don't really know who's the poor person, and in many cases they would take if they needed another working hand, say, okay, you come join us, and I'll pay you. But she stands out. How does she stand out? There are two ways to stand out. If you can't blend in. If you're the average, you don't stand out. So either you're very vocal, or you're very quiet. So if you have a room full of people who are arguing and one person doesn't say anything, eventually everybody will turn to him or to her and say, "And what do you think?" And that person will say, "No, I'm just observing." And now, wow, that's intriguing. So you're hiding something. No, I have no opinion on that. Okay, the quieter, right? They say.
Was she dressed like a Moabite?
Right, so she probably was dressed like a Moabite. There probably were some features that were a little different. But also, she probably, when she came in, she made herself known. She doesn't really have to ask for permission. That's the point. It actually answers your question. That's a good point. She doesn't have to ask for permission. It's the policy. It's an open field. Once they start reaping, anyone can come in and work with it. But she comes to the lad. She pretends that she doesn't know the rules because she's a Moabite. So she comes and says, this is my story. I came from, and I see that some people gather with the reapers and they don't look like the workers. Can I join them? Oh, I said, of course, that's the practice here. And he said, she's the poor girl, she doesn't know. That's what we do, right? And meanwhile, now, here's the one outlier that is registered in his mind. All the other girls just come, they take, and they go. Or the other poor people. But she spoke to him and she told her story. And he said, I know this girl. She's an Haim Ovadia. Now, because she told him her story, he's looking at her once in a while to see what she's doing. And but look again with the verbs of movement and motion. It's very interesting how the author guides us here. In verse 7, it says, she said, let me glean behind the reapers. Vatavo, vata'amud, me'az haboker v'ad ata. She came in, she stood. Now, the translation says she was on her feet. But we also understand she stands still. Sort of like she's very shy. She stands there, all the other girls push, or the other poor people push and fight over falling stalks, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And therefore he says, Zeshivta habayit me'at, which translated here is, she has rested but little in the hut. But, and you see the footnote A says, meaning of Hebrew, uncertain. Actually what it means...
Unless you have a rabbi, right?
Right. The people who translated it were really great scholars. The JP's great scholars worked on it. But this is the beauty of the wordplay of Tanakh. It's that it plays with the word lashuv, to return. So shevet means two things. It's to sit down, but also lashuv, to return. So he says she didn't sit, but also what she's going to return with home is me'at. She didn't gather much. So again, she's an oddity. But she's an oddity not by being that vocal girl, but she's being very quiet, she's shy, she's inactive, and he feels bad for her. She worked all day, and she barely has something to take home. So what happens as a result? Now Boaz comes to talk to her, right? But being quiet and sort of passive, she attracts attention. So Boaz comes to her and says, Halo shamat biti, al telchi lilkod besadeh aher, וגם לא תעבורי מזה, וכל תדבקין עם נערותיי. He says, listen to me, daughter. Same word that Naomi uses, my daughter. Don't go to glean in another field. Don't go elsewhere, but stay here close to my girls. So now he gives her a raise in rank. She's one of his workers. Keep your eyes on the field, they are reaping, and follow them. I have ordered the men not to molest you, which seems, that had been a problem. Yeah. So he gives her now protection. He gives her stability as a worker. He gives her protection from the men. Not only that, and when you're thirsty, go to the jars and drink some of the water that the men have drawn. So he gives her sustenance. But this is a high rank, because we know how many water disputes we had in Tanakh. The daughters of Jethro and Yitro throw the water. The shepherds drive them away. Moshe saves them. The test for it, Rivka, was, will she offer me water? Right? The servant says. So for the boss to tell the men, okay, when you draw water, give her as well. So what? We have to serve another person? Why? She didn't work for that. He says, you have to listen to me. So he now makes her their equal. It's a very important treatment that he's giving her. Great respect. But interestingly enough, if you look in the Hebrew, the English says, stay here close to my girls. But the Hebrew says, V'cho tidbakin im na'avotai. Tidbakin is from the Hebrew word devek, glue, is to cling to someone. We use it in Hebrew in the negative. When you have a nudnik, someone who clings to you and doesn't leave, you say, oof, is it devek? It's like you say, what a glue. It's like, but we saw this word before. Where did we see it? Orpah turned away, Ve'Ruth davkaba. Ruth clung to her mother-in-law. So we see the measure for measure. She stuck with her mother-in-law, and as a reward, she's being told now, stick with my girls, I'll protect you. Right? Now, what is her reaction? She should have said, thank you so much, and run, get the water, get whatever. No, instead, ותיפול על פניה ותשתחו ארצה ותאמר אליו מדוע מצאתי חן בעיניך להכירני ואנוכי נוכריה? Why are you so kind to me to single me out when I am a foreigner? Right? No, right? Again, you see the pattern over her behavior. She says, "I don't deserve it," but in a way, she says, "Tell me more." Right? Like she wants him to say, no, it's very subtle. She doesn't come and say, "Oh, I think I deserve it." That would be very manly to do because of what I did. She says, "I don't deserve it. What have I done? Why did you single me out?" And it's nice in the Hebrew because the word lehakir in Hebrew is the opposite of lehitnaker, to not know. So lehakir nochriya. You made an effort to know me even though I'm a foreigner. Right? So she stresses the point, I don't belong, because she's she wants him to say, yes, you do belong. Right?
Right.
And Boaz says, ויאמר לה, הוגד הוגד לי את כל אשר עשית את חמותך, אחרי מות אישך, ותעזבי אביך ואימך וארץ מולדתך, ותלכי אל העם אשר לא ידעת תמול שלשום. I was told all that you did with your mother-in-law, after your husband died, you left your father, your mother, and the land of your family. It's not the land of your birth. Moledet in Hebrew really means the extended family. So you left your immediate family, you left your extended family, and you went to a nation which you have not known previously. So he describes sort of a process of conversion, but also he echoes the words of, it's very similar to the words of Hashem to Abraham. Lech lecha me'artzecha u'moldetecha bet avicha el haaretz asher areika. Go from your land and the place of your family and your father, mother, to a land different, an unknown land, which I will show you. Yeshalem Adonai pa'olech, uti maskutech shlema me'im Adonai Eloi Israel asher bat lachasot tachat knafav. May you have a full recompense from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have sought refuge. Again, she says, thank you so much for comforting me, for speaking to me, but I don't deserve to be one of your maids. She stays low. Now, here in verse 14 we say,
What's the maidservant?
What?
What's a maidservant?
A maidservant is a woman, where a servant, slave, is a male. So a maidservant is a sort of is a female slave. Yes. No, but someone that is owned by the master. Yes. In Hebrew is Eved. Eved is a slave. Eved is a slave from the word avodah. And a female is either called Amma or Shifha. Amma is also the word for hand, so she's the right hand of the mistress. And or Shifha, which we don't really know what the root is, but it seems like something which is lowly, like shafuf, lower than the master. So now look at verse 14. Vayomer la Boaz la'et ha'ochel, goshi halom. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here and partake of the meal, and dip your morsel in the vinegar. That's how they used to eat. Vateshev mitzad hakotzrim. So she sat down beside the reapers. He handed her roasted grain, and she ate her fill and had some left over. So what happens here?
Dining together, very intimate.
Flying her
Right.
food.
He's right, very intimate. He's feeding her, right? But how did she get to this point? From him telling her, "Go eat with my lads," right, and drink their water, to him serving her food. What happened? Because
She's drawn to him.
yeah, but how she's drawn to him? But what does she do in order to? Does she circle around him? Does she entice him? No, she's the opposite. She's passive. He told her, "Go eat," and she just stands there. So he feels bad for her. He says, "Vayomer la Goshia, come over here." He said, "No, I think." Right? She's dying of hunger.
You are missing. It's a woman's wilds. She is playing.
Yeah, no, I'm not missing. I'm not missing.
He's not
She's playing.
Yeah, I'm noting it out, right. She's playing him, but for a noble cause. She really wants, all she wants is to save Naomi, right? So she knows she could go and get the food, or she could play for, it's a short term versus long term. She would have accepted his offer and just go eat with the lads. She would become one of his workers, right? Someone he took care of. He says, Hashem would pay your reward. Here's the reward. You got good food, you got good treatment, enough. Instead, she stands aside. She sets herself apart by being passive. He says, "Come over here." She comes over there. He says, "Eat. Here's the bread." What does she do? Vateshev mitzad hakotzrim. So she insists on it. She's okay. She sits there. Like, you can't force me to eat. So he says, "Oh, I'll force you to eat." And he takes the roast wheat and dips it in vinegar and gives it to her. She now becomes very intimate. Right? Vatakom lelaket. So then she gets up. ויצב בועז את נעריו לאמור, גם בין העומרים תלקט ולא תחלימוה. She's going to get special treatment. She can go in between the sheaves that are already gathered, the bundles where the poor people are not allowed. She can take whatever she wants. וגם שול תשולו לה מן הצוותים ועזבתם ולקטה ולא תגערו בה. And something which not very, so you must also pull some stalks out of the heaps and leave them for her to glean and not scold her. He said, if there are not enough individual stalks that fell off the sheaves, or you will pull them out, for her to glean. Make her comfortable. So amazing treatment that he gives her. So she gleans, she gets the stalks. After you get the stalks, what you do is you have to take them to the threshold and to beat out, meaning to separate the chaff from the grains. It's about they don't say it's like 30 pounds or more. It's a hefty amount of barley, just pure grain. It's a lot of grain. Vatisa vatavo ha'ir. So she carries it, and she goes home. So now to carry heavy weight, it reminds us of the opposite or mirror image of Naomi and Ruth coming into Bethlehem. The basket of bread, the house of bread, become empty-handed. Right now, vatisa vatavo, she carries a heavy weight, which is a good weight, and she comes home. But okay, you come home with this amount. What do you do? What would you do? Like your kid comes home with a big prize, right? Opens the door. Look what I got! It's unbelievable! I found this man.
Where'd you go?
No, she don't know. She brings as if she has no idea that this is exceptional. I didn't do anything exceptional. This is very natural. And her mother-in-law sees this sack on her back. Now, she usually, when a poor man or a poor woman comes home after a day like that in the field, they come with the greens and they have to roast them in the oven because they don't have time to grind them and eat them as flour and bread, but they roast them. This is the fast way, like popcorn. So puffed. People used to do that. It's called kalib. But instead, she got food to go. Remember before that, he gave her food.
Some left over.
Yeah, I got some doggy bag, but it's not. It's a respectful bag. And ותאמר לה חמותה, איפה לקראת את היום? ואנה עשית? יהי מכירך ברוך. So she says, where did you go to? What is this? ואנה לקראת, I can't. So Naomi, probably as a field owner herself in the past, knows that this cannot be Ruth's work alone. She had someone who was a benefactor, and she says, "Yehi makirech baruch." So this phrase is where we see the shift. This is a slight shift in Naomi's mood from being bitter with God and say I'm empty, I'm singled out, I'm the target of his art, to say there's a blessing here. Two words here. Again, it's a wordplay in Hebrew. She says efo likat hayom, where, but it's the same word if you look at verse 17 of the measurement efa seorim. The measurement that she brought home is called efa in Hebrew. The word where is efo. Sounds the same. It's like, wow, so much. Where did you bring that from? And then she says, Yehi makirech baruch, the one who recognized you should be blessed. What did she tell Boaz? Why do you recognize me? Why do you single me out and you don't know me? So she already felt that. So ותגיד לחמותה את אשר עשתה עמו. She said, oh, ותאמר, שם האיש אשר עשיתי עמו היום, the man I worked with today, Boaz. Like, I don't know, it's just this guy, Boaz. She has no idea that he's related to her, right? Completely ignorant. ותאמר נעמי לכלתה, ברוך הוא לאדוני אשר לא עזב חסדו את החיים ואת המתים. He is blessed to Hashem who did not abandon his kindness to the living or to the dead. For, Naomi explained to her daughter-in-law, the man is related to us. He is one of our redeeming kinsmen. Right? So this is the guy. Naomi, Ruth is the birthday girl who already opened all the presents, right? She knows exactly what she gets. She wraps them back, and when she gets them, she says, "Oh wow, thank you so much. How did you think of that?" Right? But this is exactly what happens. She knows his Boaz. She directed everything, all of her efforts to get to Boaz, and now she comes back innocently and says, "I don't know. I got to this guy Boaz, and this is what he gave me." And Naomi says, "This is a sign from heaven. Hashem is with us." So, in the beginning of the book, she tells Ruth, "Thank you for the hesed that you did with the Haim Ovadia. Now go." So she says there was up to this moment there was hesed, but no more. Then she said, "Hashem is against me. Hashem targets me. I don't trust him anymore." Here, all of a sudden, she says, "Baruch hu Hashem." She moves from saying, "You're the one who took care of you should be blessed," to saying, "Hashem is blessed." She's able to reconcile with God. And we know that's not easy. Any of us who ever had a grudge with God, right? We know it ain't easy because why it's not easy? Because God doesn't apologize. Not in the way, if we have a grudge against humans, right? So we could work out something and look for an apology or apologize ourselves. With God, there are no apologies. We have to work out the apology. We have to work out to say, okay, I went through harsh times, but this is God's way to show me that it's over. Right? That was what happened with Naomi now.
So
yes.
you're saying that Naomi deliberately did this in a very subtle way in order
Ruth.
to turn,
Yeah.
in order to turn Naomi's attitude around.
Yes.
How did she know how did she know about the relationship with Boaz and how to?
So Ruth was a smart woman. She probably heard about Boaz previously, in a conversation, maybe when Elimelech and Naomi left, and they were talking about, maybe we should go talk to Boaz. No, I was like, and then when they were planning to go back to Israel before he passed away, the name came up. So it's a kind of wisdom of keeping this piece of information. So, okay, this is important. I'll store it for later, and then she used it at the right time. But she definitely did not ask her mother-in-law, "Do you have any relatives?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is it to be a redeemer?
So what is being a redeemer? So it's interesting. concept. This is where a lot of scholars had a problem with the book of Ruth, because we have a concept in the book of Devarim, in Deuteronomy, in Parashat Kitetse, that is called the Leveret law, or Yibum. In that law of Yibum speaks about brothers who one of them passes away and he has no children, in which case one of the other brothers marries his wife. When he marries his wife, the Torah doesn't say what happens with the son, except that Al Shem Ahiv Yikare ben Halato. He will be named after the dead brother in his inheritance. So the rabbis interpreted the pasuk as saying, the verse as saying that the inheritance of this new son will be that part which belonged to his father. He's like the heir of his father, but he will be not the father, sorry, of the dead father, of the deceased brother, right? So let's say they give always the classic example of Reuven and Shimon. So Reuven and Shimon are brothers, and Reuven died. Shimon married his wife. Now they have a son. The son is called the son of Reuven in terms of inheritance. It seemed like there was a belief also that the son is a reincarnation of the dead brother, and sort of like he completes his mission on earth. And that's why in the previous story about the Leveret law, that of the children of Yehuda had one son, Er. He died, and then he married his daughter Tamar to the other brother, Onan. But Onan did not want to have children from Tamar because he didn't want the children not to be his. So he made sure that Tamar will not be pregnant, and he was punished for that because that was considered lack of kindness, of compassion. So, but the problem here is that according to biblical law, the Torah law in the Deuteronomy, it is only among the brothers. What Yehuda and Tamar did was anyone from the extended family, and this is also what we see with Ruth. It seemed like anyone, so maybe that there were two levels. There was the Torah level, which required the brother to marry his brother's widow, and therefore, in that manner, reinstitute the family that was threatened. But people extended it to anyone from the family, anyone who had the right to marry the widow. So in this case, Boaz is a moda; he's a distant relative. But if he marries Ruth, then the child will be considered the child of Naomi and the child of Mahlon. Sorry, he was Ruth's husband. ותאמר רות המואביה, גם כי אמר אליי, עם הנערים אשר לי תדבקין עד אם כילו את כל הקציר אשר לי. Only now Ruth reveals, really it's interesting that you say that he's a relative. Now it makes sense that he told me to stick with him until the end of the harvest. And again the word to stick with, תדבקין. ותאמר נעמי אל רות כלתה, טוב ביתי, it's good. כי תצאים נערותיו ולא יפגעו בך בשדה אחר. If you go with his girls, you will not be molested in other places, as was. But tidbak benarot Boaz, so she stuck with them until the end of the harvest of barley and the harvest of wheat. One important word that Naomi utters here. Vatomer Naomi Ruth kalata tov biti. It is good. How did she describe her relationship with God before? Shaddai herali. God did evil to me, and now she says tov biti. This is the shift from Ra letov. So this is how you get someone out of this depth of depression, of being sullen. Like, show them that there's one thing. Once they are able to recognize that there's something good, they have hope. So Naomi, now look at verse chapter 3, which I always troubles. How do you teach that in elementary school, or I don't know, even high school? This is really bad. So Naomi tells her, "Halo avakesh lach manoach asher yitav lach." I want for you a home of rest where you have, again, yitav lach, something good for you. Ve'ata halo Boaz moda'atanu asher ra'it et na'arotav. You were with the girls of Boaz, remember? And Ruth says, Boaz. Oh yeah. Like for her, the moment the harvest is over, I have no connection to him. She says, "Hineu zored goren asorim alayla." He will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor tonight. So bathe, anoint yourself, dress up, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not disclose yourself to the men until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he lies down, and go over and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what you are to do." She replied, "I will do everything you tell me." So she's totally submissive. She doesn't argue. She accepts, but what is Naomi telling her to do? This is a little strange, right?
Pretty clear what she's telling her.
Known as seduction.
She's seducing him only, or she's going further than that. And why is she tells her to dress with she's basically, it's a proposal, but a very right. But usually the girl doesn't propose to the man, but in this case she does that.
Not anymore.
What?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's still pretty common, I think. Yeah, the change is not so great. I think still 90% of the cases that I know, that I hear, or like if the girl proposes to the man, they say, it's an exception.
It's also a point just to reinforce what you said before that she was very passive.
Yes.
Right now it's more than the shift is her changing from mother,
Right.
but now she's taking the initiative.
Exactly, that point. Naomi now is the one who's pushing Ruth, go. And before she was buried in the house. And Ruth says, "Can I go?" Go. Now she says, "No, you have to leave the house." And leave the house in a time where people usually, before she was in the house during the day when most people are out. Now she says, "I want you to be out of the house at night when most people are home." Meaning that I don't need the safety of the house anymore. I don't need to hide there. There's something safer and better waiting outside. So why is Boaz winnowing the threshing ground at night is not clear. But what is winnowing is basically after the beating or the threshing, where the straw, the chaff was separated from the grains, they would put the grains in big trays and throw them in the air. There's the word winnowing is related to wind, and the wind would blow away the straw, and the heavy stuff would fall down. So I think there are one of two options, two possibilities here, or maybe three. One is that it was very hot during the day, and it was easier to do it at night. Second is like maybe it was more windy at night, and that's why they did that. But I think more probably is that it had to do with some kind of a belief, sort of like we call ayn hara, the evil eye. You don't want other people to see your wealth, because this is a big issue later on in the Talmud. They say you're not supposed to wander into your friend's field when it's in full bloom. And they say when you go to measure your granary to see how much grain you have, you say, "Please God bless this." They had this fear of that if I measure it or if people see it, it will be diminished. So at least the beginning is at night. So this is a very, in this sense, it's a very secretive activity. Boaz is now in the granary, the field is his home. And nobody's supposed to be there. He's alone. It is an echo. There are many layers in this book, but this one echoes the beginning, where they go from the house of bread to the field of Moab, the open field of Moab, and the house of bread of Yehudah. And now they come together, because it's the field where Ruth the Moabite used to gather and glean, coming into the threshing hold, and it's the house of the men of Yehudah, Boaz. Now everything comes together, and she's going to entice him. But she says, "Al tivadei la'ish." Don't present yourself to the man, which is a mirror image of him making her known to him in the beginning, when she says, "Why lama matzati her b'einecha la'akireni?" And he's a moda, he's someone who's a relative. So he says, now play it hard to get in a sort of like, don't show yourself. She goes there and she does whatever her mother-in-law told her to do. Boaz eats, drinks, is in a cheerful mood. and he comes to lie down beside the grain pile. So like, this is my wealth, I'm protecting it, right? ותבוא בלט, ותגל מרגלותיו ותשכב. She uncovered his feet and lay down. It's very intimate, very disturbing, sort of. ויהי בחצי הלילה ויחרד האיש וילפת והנה אישה שוכבת מרגלותיו. So in the middle of the night, the man gave a start and pulled back because he doesn't know what's going on, feels something is strange. And here's the woman there. ויאמר מי את? What was the first question that when he saw her? מי הנערה הזאת? So again, he asks twice מי את. One, in plain daylight, who is this girl? Second, after he knows her so well, who are you? ותאמר אנוכי רות אמתך ופרסת כנפיך על עמדיך כי גואל אתה. She says, I'm Ruth, your maidservant. Remember? So like, you acquired me. You gave me a position. You said, you will be one of my girls. So now I'm one of your girls. So now you have to follow through. Sort of like, she tricked him into claiming her. And now she says, I want to collect this promise. And what is the word that she uses? Uparasta knafecha alamatecha. I wanted to spread your robe, or literally your wing, over me, to include me in your household. It's the same word that he used to say, you will be blessed by God, under whose wings you came to take refuge. So she said, okay, you spoke like this of God, now you be the representative of God and extend refuge to me.
I like that.
Right? Isn't it interesting the way? It is beautiful. It's a beautiful story. It's an amazing story. And Boaz is a mensch, right? He's a gentleman. Vayomer berucha at ladonai. So now he echoes Naomi. She said, Baruch hu ladonai. Boaz is Baruch to Hashem. Boaz tells Ruth, you are Barucha to Hashem. So everybody's happy, everybody's blessed, right? To each other. Hetavd hasdecha haron min harishon. Your latest deed of loyalty is greater than the first, that you have not turned to younger men, whether poor or rich. And now, so it was an older man. And now he says, you didn't go after the young man. But he knows that the loyalty is not to him, but to Naomi. He fully understands that. And the word hesed really throughout the Megillah means more than mercy or compassion or kindness. It means loyalty. The original meaning of the word hesed in Hebrew is faithfulness, even punctuality. And why is it related to kindness? Because when people show loyalty to each other, they tend to have more passion and more compassion towards each other. I think I mentioned once that even the name of the stork in Hebrew is called Hasidah, because it's a migratory bird and it comes back to the same place every year. So the Navi says, Hasidah b'shamayim yad'a mu'adeh. The Hasidah knows its time. So to have Hesed is to know the person. So he says, V'ata biti al tiri kol asher tomri e'aseh lach, ki yodea kol sha'ar ami keshet chaylat. He says, have no fear, I will do in your behalf whatever you ask. For all the elders of my town know that a fine woman you are. Not fine, it says a woman of strength. Highly strength, even though we translate a woman of valor. Now what he says here, I would say it's a little like, he comments, I understand, I also understand your game. I know that you want it, but he says, I know that you're doing it for Naomi, and I will play along with you, because I know that you really care for her. He says, Lini alayla, so basically he says, and the rest of the story I said less interesting, it doesn't have that.
Closer than I as Naomi.
What?
The Redeemer.
Oh yeah, there was another Redeemer. There was someone who was closer to him, to the family. He says there's another person. Let's see if he will do that. I was going to wrap up the story. So he gives her he takes her scarf or whatever, right, her shawl. He fills it with shesh se'orim v'ashet aleh. She collects that. So if she goes home and someone sees her, she worked in the field until the late hour, and she comes to her mother-in-law and she says, "Miat biti." Again, the question, "Who are you?" Maybe she looked different now. Maybe she's now a different person. She's all giddy, or she's joyous. She doesn't recognize her. But what she doesn't recognize is the reflection of Naomi and herself. Naomi now is a new person. She says, he gave me those 6 stalks. We don't know if it's really a huge quantity or symbolic. Now, I would go for the symbolic, that he only gave her 6 stalks of wheat. And why would that be important? Because by giving her only 6 stalks, he says you don't have to glean anymore. You don't need to be that poor woman who goes to the field. No, you're going to be yourself a wealthy woman. So that's it, enough. Those are the 6, maybe the 6 days of work. So that's it. You don't have to work anymore. That's your new life. But look at what is interesting in verse 17. He says, "Ki amar elai al tavoi rekam el hamotech." Don't come to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Turn 2 pages back, and when Naomi comes and they say, "Is this Naomi?" She says, "Rekam heshivani Adonai." My God brought me back empty-handed. And now Ruth tells Naomi, Boaz said, "Don't come back to your mother-in-law empty-handed." She echoes her mother-in-law's words. She's doing the healing process 1 step at a time. Isn't she an amazing woman, Ruth? Right? Really, she's a wonderful person. She does all that quietly, echoing Naomi's words. And Naomi, it registers because it's her language. It's her parlance. This is something that she understands. So, Vatomer Shavi biti. Now you could sit down. Remember in the beginning she didn't sit down? Now you could sit down. Why? Ki lo yishkot ha'ish ki im kila davar hayom. He will do it today. His on it, right? So Boaz goes to the gate and he sits there, and the Redeemer passes there. Come here, whatever your name is, right? In Arabic you say flan man. In Spanish, fulano de tal. It came from the Arabic, the Hebrew. So Ploni Almoni, they don't even mention his name. So he comes and he sits there, and he takes 10 elders. Sit here. The sitting now is important. It's an important event right now. ויאמר לגואל, חלקת השדה של האחינו לאלימלך מכרה נעמי השבה משדה מואב. You know that the field of Elimelech was sold by his wife. And I said, let me tell you that you could buy it. And if you want to redeem it, redeem. But if not, let me know, because I am the next in line. So it's sort of we call it in Hebrew mehtaf, it's a coup d'etat. He contacts him on the spot. Come here, 10 men, sit here. What's going on? He's startled. We have a field. Do you want it? If you don't want it, I'll take it. And he says, okay, I'll take it. And Boaz says, on the day you buy the field from Naomi and from Ruth, not only Naomi, the Ruth Ovadia, Eshet Hamet. You are buying it from the wife of the deceased to reestablish the name of the deceased over his inheritance. Twice the word Hamet. To scare him off. Because this moment, he said, are you willing to do it? If not, I'll do it. He says, I'll do it. But remember, you take it, you take responsibility, you take responsibility of the dead. No, I cannot do that. Now it's going to affect my own inheritance. I'm not interested. You take it. So he does that. He was able to maneuver him. Interesting, right, Boaz? And he says, I have acquired all that belongs to Elimelech in verse 9. And I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite, the wife of Mahlon, to be my wife. Interesting, because in the beginning we didn't know who's the wife of Mahlon, who's the wife of Kilion. Both names are not are negative names. Mahlon means disease, Kilion means annihilation. But now, in the flashback, only here it's revealed because it tells us the other brother, Kilion, annihilation, was married to Orpah, the one who turned her back, so he's really gone. Ruth was married to Mahlon, disease, but now he's healed, he's healthy. There's no more mahala. Mahala is something that's reversible. V'gam et Ruth Ovadia, I have acquired her. They all say, Yiten Adonai et ha'isha הבאה אל ביתך כרחל וכלאה אשר בנו שתיהם את בית ישראל V'aseh hayil be'efrata ukra Shem be'vet Lahem. May she will be like Rachel and Leah who built the house of Israel, the house of Bethlehem, the house of bread. V'hi betcha kebet peretz asher yalda Tamar liYehuda. Hint, hint. Maybe they're jabbing him. I don't know. So remember Tamar and Yehuda? That was an interesting story. How she tempted him and got him to father a child for her. So maybe they're saying that. But what it ends, they have a happy end. ויקח בועז את רות ותהי לו לאישה ויבוא אליה ויתן אדוני לה הריון ותלד בן. She was Hashem gave her pregnancy, meaning that was a gift from God. To say that she was rewarded for all her efforts. It's not just a regular thing. The rabbis took it to an extreme, said that Boaz was a very old man and he died the day after the wedding. That's not a happy ending. Totally, that's terrible. It's terrible. It's tragic. The poor girl. Not enough was she went with her husband in Moab. Now they kill the next husband. It didn't die. It's a midrash. It's not in the pasuk. It's not. No. But Hazal did it to dramatize the whole story. To say, if she wouldn't have done it, she would have lost it. But it's not. He lived a long life. It was yeah.
So Boaz is being, the word redeemer means Boaz.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and Boaz means strength in him. Boaz. So he's now.
There was another redeemer who was another cousin, another relative.
Right, but he didn't do it. Right.
Who he didn't.
Now what happens in the next verse? But Tomarna Anashim el Naomi. The women now speak to Naomi. From here on, you're not going to hear about Ruth. She's out of the picture. And because that's how she wanted it. Baruch Adonai asher lo ishbit lach goel hayom v'yikareh shemo b'Yisrael. Blessed is Hashem. Now the women, it's the choir. Like in the Greek tragedy, the choir fills in the narrative, right? So they're the choir. In the first time that they appeared, they said, "You're Naomi? Wow. It's unbelievable." Now they say, God is blessed because He gave you a Redeemer, v'yikareh shemo b'Yisrael, and His name will be a renowned name in Israel. We took from here the words, v'yikareh shemo b'Yisrael, when we announced the name of the baby in the Brit Milah. והיה לך למשיב נפש ולכלכל את צוותך. He will bring back your soul. Meshiv, same verb of teshuvah, all throughout the Megillah. Same word, lashuv, lashuv, lashuv. So He is the one who brings back your soul. Double entendre, both your soul and the soul of the deceased. ולכלכל את צוותך, כי כלתך אשר אהבתך ילדתו. You got it from your daughter-in-law who truly loves you. אשר היא טובה לך משבעה בנים. She's better than 7 sons. ותיקח נעמי את הילד, ותשיתהו בחיקה, ותהי לו לאומנת. She took the baby and she put her in her bosom, and she became its foster mother. That's it. It's her son. ותקראנה לו השכנות שם לאמור, יולד בן לנעמי. Say, wow, look, Naomi has a son. So it's and Ruth she lets her be the mother.
But she was much older.
Yes, but we don't know that she was much older. Like in today's terms, maybe she got married young. Could be 45, right? The beauty of this is that Naomi, in the beginning, when they were trying to go with her, she says, "Go away. Am I going to be married? Am I going to be? Am I going to be pregnant? And am I going to have children?" And she ends up with having her own child, even though it's vicariously, but it's her own child. ותקראנה שמו עובד הוא אבי ישי אבי דוד. So
You can read this as the women not wanting to recognize Ruth because she was a foreigner.
Yeah, I used to read also like that, and I think it's also a valid reading. But I think that actually what it does here is that Ruth steps into the shadows. She doesn't want to take center stage, and she wants to she's the one who really redeems Naomi. This whole story, she's the one who was able to pull Naomi out of her depression. And that's why I think that the other layer in the story is the story of Bnei Israel coming out of the Red Sea or the Sea of Reeds and going into the desert. And they get to the water and they can't drink the water because the water is bitter. But there's one interpretation, actually, Hasidic, that says, the Torah says they couldn't drink the water because they were bitter. Who were bitter?
The people.
The people were bitter. If you're bitter, nothing works. Hashem says to Moshe, take a stick, a branch, and throw it into the water. What was the tree? Nobody knows. So it was a placebo. Only when in their mind, oh yes, now it works. Now we can drink from the water. But the Torah concludes with Sham Sam L'Hokum Mishpat V'Sham Nisau. Hashem gave them the Torah. So physically, it's this: they're bitter, they're unhappy, they're kvetching, they can't drink from the water. Hashem says, miracle. Okay, we can drink the water. Right? Symbolically, the Torah teaches us responsibility and to be altruistic and not selfish. If you look at the laws that I mentioned there, and by doing that, we can overcome our bitterness. And Ruth is the tree of life that made Mara, Naomi, the bitter water. She made her back into Naomi, into blessed water, which are potable. So that's why I think Ruth is from the word. So remember that when we started the Megillah, I said that we know the symbolism of all the names of the Megillah. Elimelech, king, strong; Naomi, pleasant; Mahmon, Kilion, disease and annihilation; Boaz, strength. But Ruth, what does it come from? It comes from the Hebrew word raveh, to satiate your thirst. She is the one who made Naomi not thirsty and brought her back to drinking the water.
Well, she does this final act of love, which is stepping back and giving the grandmother.
Yes.
The joy of being a grandmother is well known.
Right.
It's not a grandmother. I mean, it says foster mother.
Right.
Well,
She's a foster mother because.
I know that, but I mean,
Right.
Technically speaking,
Right.
it's sort of a grandmothery kind
Yes.
of.
Yes. It is contained in the term omenet.
Naomi knows she's not the mother.
Right, but she feels right.
She feels the same tie to the child.
Yes.
As a mother.
Right, because omenet in Hebrew, we spoke about several times about the biradical root. That in Hebrew, the two first letters of the verb are, when you combine them with the third letter, are all related somehow. So omenet, a caretaker or a wet nurse, the first letter is M, mother, the same level of trust.
And we know this word comes also with Mordechai, that he was the Oman of
Omen of Esther. Right.
Robert,
Okay, we'll conclude here.